Alton Brown, author and culinary personality, has a new book, Food for Thought, and going on a final tour with two shows in our city. Thank you so much for your time today.
I can't wait to be back in Chicago.
April 19th, you're going to be here. We got several things. We have a book signing, and then we also have two stops at the CIBC Theatre.
Yes, a book signing and two shows. So there's a very good chance that I will just drop dead in Chicago
No.
at the end of the night. It's the busiest day on the tour. But I used to live in Chicago and I love Chicago, so I wanted to do the second show.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I want to talk a little bit about the tour too. It's very different than the previous tours that you've done before. It's more science-based. I mean, talk a little bit about, that intention behind making it a little different, and then also
Sure.
saying that it's going to be your, final one like this.
All of my live shows I like to call culinary variety shows. They're a mixture of comedy and storytelling, audience interaction, volunteers on stage, large culinary demonstrations, large unusual culinary demonstrations, weird things that we build. So this show is kind of a continuation of that tradition, but there's a lot more science in this show. I think that my previous tours that I've played there in Chicago, I kind of designed for the fans, and this one I think I designed more for me. So it's kind of a selfish labor of love. This time. And yeah, it's going to be my last. I told myself back in 2013 when I first started touring that I would try to do four. And I really feel that at the end of this tour, I will have done what I came to do. So and it's time to move on to other things. I'm still going to do live performances, but I will do much smaller kind of club shows instead of these kind of big bus extravaganzas with trucks and all the this bus that I live on. I need to be done with that.
Tell me a little bit of kind of about your mindset of like going into saying this is going to be my last kind of big tour, and then kind of maybe the emotions that you're experiencing, especially during this
Sure.
last one.
Okay. I think it's important that, if you make a decision that something's going to be your last so that you can move on to other things, you kind of need to do that. It would be very easy for me to keep touring because I love the audiences. It's funny. I've actually, I spent most of my career in television, but I now actually prefer being on the stage. And I think it's because it's very addicting. Audiences bring a lot of energy and a lot of love. They kind of fill you up, whereas TV cameras just suck your soul right out of your head. So I have mixed feelings about being done with this particular type of showbiz. But I promise not to abandon, just like cut my fans loose to other fields and other pastures, so to speak. But I think it's important that I'm 62 years old. It's time for me to move on and try to do some other things while I still have time.
Well, of course, you have plenty of time. Yeah, but we love that you're coming to Chicago because obviously, in our city, we could talk about pizza and hot dogs, all day long. But tell us a little bit.
Oh, I know.
And we do,
Oh, I
yeah.
know. Oh, I know. I used to live there. I kind of had my adult culinary awakening in Chicago when I lived there in the late '80s. The first sushi I ever ate was in Chicago, and I remember my first Chicago dog. I remember my first Chicago pizza. And above all, I remember I loved the feeling that the town was kind of held together by food and by ideas of food, and everybody is so passionate about food and beverage there in a way that really kind of holds the city together in a way that I think is unique in the United States, to be really honest.
Because I mean, you think about coming back here, and obviously I live here, but there's still neighborhoods I don't get to visit all the time. Or there's favorites,
Mhm.
new places I want to try, or old favorites I haven't been to. I mean, what is it like when you say I'm coming to Chicago? I mean, how do you plan those meals that you're going to have? Because
It's
obviously your
it's
time's limited.
it's really it's when I'm on tour, it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's like I've got a book signing and two shows. The odds of me actually getting a molecule of food this time when I'm in Chicago is probably non-existent. Although I will certainly try after the show. But my wife and I. We come to Chicago just to come to Chicago. So we come to visit. We have friends there, and we eat all over town. And I still love going up on. My worry is that I never know if the old places are still open, right? And every time I go, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go up to Raises on North Clark. I hope it's still there. And then you go, and it's like, oh yeah, it's still there. Good, because you never know in this day and age.
Yeah, you never know, but obviously the more that people post on social media or keep those things alive, that our favorite restaurants, it's tradition. Like you said, we talk
Sure.
about those restaurants. You think about your favorite, your first time you had sushi, or your first, bite of a particular, pizza
Yeah,
or hot dog.
first time in Greektown, first time in Bucktown. First, I've got foods that I kind of have associated with all of those places from back in my 20s, and those are hard memories to shake. I don't want to shake.
Oh, exactly. You don't want to shake them. I want to talk a little bit about the book, because
Sure.
that was very kind of unintentional. You're trying to fix a typewriter, and then suddenly this book comes out. I mean, tell me a little bit
Well,
about
not
that.
suddenly. It didn't happen suddenly. That would be a magic typewriter. No, but I did not mean to write this book. Food for Thought came out of repairing the typewriter that I'm pictured with on the cover of the book, and I had been like lubricating this sticky key, and I needed to just run some paper through it, and I did, and I put the paper aside, and I came back a few days later, and it was the first part of one of the essays for the book. And so, at my wife's suggestion, I sat down at that typewriter for 4 solid months, and out came that book. But it was not intentional.
What was the first essay that you wrote for this book?
It's an essay called "Howl of the Husky,"
Okay.
which is about my experience in my youth being husky, which was the term they used to use for fat kid, specifically a male fat kid back in the 70s. And that was the first thing that came out of the typewriter. And when I went back to read it, I was literally like, I didn't recognize the voice. I didn't know where that had come from, which was kind of weird and spooky, but it kept happening. So
Tell me a little bit about what else we're going to see in the book. I mean, is it life stories? Is it favorite things
there's
to
some
cook?
of
I mean,
that.
tell me a little bit about
There's a fair amount of what I call investigative memoir, which is not me telling glorious stories of my past, but me trying to figure out how the heck I got here. And I think that all of us at some point in our life have to look and say, all right, so how did we do this? And so there's some essays that are specific to my past, examining, for instance, meals that I think were kind of pivotal in making who I am. But then there's also essays that have absolutely nothing to do with food whatsoever. Because I actually do think a lot of other things. So it's nice to be able to have kind of an outlet for that. So some memoirs, some what I would call thought essays or idea essays, and some are just provocative pokings, I think.
Tell me a little bit
I
about
like
how
that.
your
Provocative
relationship with
pokings. I like that.
how is your relationship, especially not, maybe not cooking at home, but when you go out? Obviously, that experience has changed so much since the pandemic. A lot more ordering out, a lot more experiences. I think you see things on social media that are this tall or this wide or this particular color, or there's firecrackers coming out of it, and it's just kind of changed, the culture of how people connect over food. How have how's that changed, for you, and kind of what are you seeing as you're going out of the store?
Well, number one, I don't like it. I think that social media has done more to hurt food than help it. Yes, I know there are restaurants that have got audiences now that didn't have audiences, but I feel that our relationship with food, I think our relationship with food by and large has become too visual. Too much through our eyes, which is not really how food is meant to be enjoyed. And I think we're losing kind of the connectivity of people connecting to each other through food because of this solo this thing that we do, which really worries me. And it also worries me because I think that our cooking skills as home cooks are starting to go into decline from where they were in the 2000s when I think cooking shows were kind of at their zenith.
Yeah. No, it was definitely one of those things. People wanted to recreate those recipes that they saw either on television or on the internet, and now it doesn't. It's
Yeah,
very
but they
quick.
don't really
You
want
want to
to.
do
They
it.
don't really want to recreate them. They don't because they don't want to go to the trouble of even reading a recipe, which explains TikTok. You can't recreate or learn from those outlets. You can't, and people can jump up and down on me all day long. I know what I'm talking about. You only do that through diligence and patience and giving time. I have a whole essay in this book about the thing that leads to great cuisine is time. You've got to invest time, which is the thing that most people just aren't willing to do anymore. We want it fast. We want to do this. And that just doesn't lead to a healthy, robust relationship with food.
And speaking of something either that it takes time to do, but also it saves you time. I love your takes on pasta, and especially not using as much water as you thought, and always kind of having that as a go-to ingredient in your home to make something.
Absolutely. And people don't realize, because people like me didn't realize for a long time, how little amount of water you can cook dried pasta in, and how much faster it cooks when you use a small amount of water. And best of all, the fact that when you're done, you've got this starchy water left over that you can use to thicken sauces. When I look back at the amount of water we all used to use to cook pasta, I'm literally embarrassed and humiliated by that. But we're fixing it. We're fixing it. We're getting the word out.
And I just heard about that recently because up until like my whole entire life, it's been 47 gallons of water that I'm taking
Yep.
over to the
Yep.
sink.
In
Yeah,
like big pots. And it's a very romantic notion. It's completely wrong. It is completely wrong. The only thing that the big bucket of water does is allow you to not have to stir quite as much, because if you're cooking in a small amount of water, you do have to stir a good bit to keep things from sticking. But there's just no other reason. There really isn't.
and then final thing here before we go, a
Mhm.
message to everybody watching, as far as not just our Chicagoland restaurants, but iconic places that you've visited, about keeping those places alive, visiting those places, and really enjoying the meals with the friends and family that you go there to enjoy it with.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say what the restaurants are, but I've got them. But I'm not going to say what they
Yeah,
are. I got especially some spots down on the south side that I'm especially fond of. But I don't think they want me mentioning them because I think they like staying small.
yeah. No, I mean, as far as people's appreciation, I know we talked a little bit about how the culture has changed,
Mhm.
as far as people on their phones, but I think me, I think
Oh,
everyone, like, oh,
in
I want to go back
Chicago,
to my favorite place, and keeping
I,
those
I do. I do
enjoying
think
the
that Chicago. I think Chicago's different in that, because I do think that people um, have these relationships. First off, people in Chicago, Chicagoans are talkers, and they talk to owners, and they talk to servers, and they form relationships.
yeah.
It is not transactional. Food in places like New York tends to be very transactional. People don't want to talk and have a relationship with the owners unless it gets them a better table. In Chicago, it's very, very much a fluid relationship kind of thing. And I think that is one of the reasons that it's such a great food town. And that's why we still have the favorite places, and why we still have the relationships and the feelings that we do towards our favorite restaurants.
Thank you so much for your time today. We've got a book
Sure.
signing in Chicago. We got make sure at Williams Sonoma.
Yeah,
Make sure to get those spots early, and then we got two shows at the CIBC Theatre, Broadway and
sure.
Chicago.com for those tickets. Make sure you get them.
You
Enjoy
can
your
go to altonbrownlive.com is the best place for the show tickets. Absolutely.
yeah.
altonbrownlive.com.
Alton Brown Live, you get them for the. You can find info on all the bookstore stuff, not just the ones in Chicago, and also all the stops that you're making, as well too.
Yep. Yep.
Enjoy your time in our city. I hope you get a few moments to
Yes, I
enjoy
will.
some food or some friends or something outside of.
Yeah, there's going to be a donut or two and a couple of other things that I will definitely make sure happen while I'm there for sure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Have
Thank
a
you.
good one.
You too. Thank you.